Well, welcome everybody. We are four Keep Indiana digital learning coaches. My name is Jo Cox, and I am joined by three of my esteemed colleagues, Diana Knox, Shannon Quigley, and Bo Gibson. And we're really excited today to discuss ChatGPT as well as other forms of AI and what the implications are in classrooms today.
Awesome. We're excited to get started talking about AI. And I think AI is something that's been around in some ways that we don't always recognize it, like because it's just become such a normal part of everyday life. So things like your phone recognizing your face, there's different, chat bots on any website that you go to that are answering questions for you, or one of my personal favorites now is things like in Google Docs or in my email where it's predicting my text so I can just quickly write an email. But it's kind of become mainstream now with ChatGPT entering the scene for educators. So it's kind of, in some views, gotten kind of a negative, I feel like, response when you hear the basic line of what ChatGPT is that it is an AI or artificial intelligence machine that can generate papers, content for anybody by just putting in some simple directions for this program through OpenAI. So if a student or a teacher wants to come in and say, write a paper on something, they can just put in a few descriptors and it's going to write a really well written response for you. So it's kind of been using it. It understands the algorithms. It scans text very quickly to generate these responses. And it's really changed the game, I feel like, in a lot of ways for both students, but also educators to think about how they're going to respond to what ChatGPT can do for you in your classroom. So today our goal is to kind of talk about some different ways that ChatGPT is being used and hopefully maybe clear up some misconceptions, give you some ideas, and really guide some thinking around what ChatGPT is capable of.
Yeah, Shannon, I just realized that Canva basically has AI written in, and some of it was before these latest updates, but it has some great features and some predictability in text as well. And they've really upped their game in AI as well as other platforms.
I agree. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And I think it's one of those things that our initial reaction is to go, oh my gosh, I don't want any part of this. But the reality is it's here and we've been using it and we really enjoy some facets of it and our students are going to love it. So it's probably going to be our task to work on helping them learn how to responsibly use it so that they don't get themselves into a predicament somewhere down the line.
Yeah, it's just like with any other technology, it's going to follow an exponential growth pattern. And so it's going to be on us fast. I think it's already kind of that way, but that rate of increase is just going to increase. So if the students aren't well-versed in how to use it responsibly, how to use it ethically, and also use it, leverage it to their advantage, they're going to kind of get left in the dust. So us as teachers have to be able to navigate that as well and kind of show them, how can you use this productively? How can you use it ethically? How can you use it to your advantage? Because, like you've said, just going forward, it's only going to be more prevalent in more areas of their lives.
And we didn't have this necessarily down to talk about, but one of the things teachers can do is find ways that they can use it to save themselves time and energy and get comfortable with this AI process before they start bringing that into the classroom conversation. I've been reading about people using it to help them write their IEP language, letters of recommendation. I mean, if you can get some of your own time back by learning how to leverage it to save you time, that's a great way for teachers to dip their toes in and get started.
Diana, ChatGPT wrote my whole script today, so
I love it.
If I could figure out a way to
hook
it up to a screen reader, then I won't even have to be here at all.
I have a good friend. I won't call her out because I didn't ask her permission for this, but she kind of got under the gun about a presentation she had to make. And she used ChatGPT to help generate that presentation that she needed to do. And she said, did a pretty good job.
Hey, we were talking about this just yesterday with our planning meeting, letters of recommendation, teacher, now's the time of year teachers get hit up for those. And It does a really great job. I've used it a few times. Give it the right prompts as far as what the letter of recommendations for, what the position's all about, or the scholarship. Let it give you an outline and just edit it from there. I think it, kind of takes my workload and cuts it in half or by 2/3. So,
and isn't that going to be the art form? Figuring out how to phrase those prompts so that you get what you want, you get the best results, because really at the heart of it, there's still a human generating the prompt. So that's
right.
going to help dictate the content that you get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of like
Definitely. And the fact,
go
ahead,
for it,
Bob.
Joe. Okay.
Well, the
I
fact
was
that
just
you
going to say,
can,
gosh, I'm just going to go. In statistics, we always say junk in, junk out, right? If you have junk data, you're gonna have junk results. Same thing with AI. It's, if your prompts are junk, your results are junk. So yeah, it is definitely a case of learning how to navigate those prompts and get the most out of it.
yeah, and I was just going to say the fact that you can go back to your prompt and add in, make this. I wrote a scratch lesson actually using ChatGPT, and I didn't give it an age level. So I had to go back and say, please write this for a fifth grader. And it customized it. And I'm telling you, it gave me objectives. It gave me what to say in an entire lesson plan. It was detailed. And I was quite impressed by it, but I had to go back and, customize it. And I think that's part of the secret. It's not one and done. You can go back and add in some more details, and it will regenerate your response.
Former language teacher here, and I can distinctly remember this was early in my teaching career when translators were just kind of coming onto the scene. And I would have students that would take their paragraph, they wrote it in English, threw it in a translator, printed it out, and turned it into me. And they didn't even proofread it. Yeah. And so the translators at that point didn't recognize things like three-wheeler or just slang that we use. And I had one unfortunate student that I taught Spanish, and he selected French when he translated it and turned in a whole paragraph in French that he hadn't bothered to read. So, those kinds of things, those are missteps that are going to happen when you're using new technology and you don't take the time to put some human energy into it.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
So innovative ways, what are some innovative?
Yeah, have you guys heard about some innovative ways to use it in the classroom?
Diana, do you want to start us off with that action research that you were?
I can. This is something I'm fascinated at. The language lover in me, the lover of words, and I've really kind of gotten into research at this point in my career. I love the way this teacher that I was reading about. There's a group on Facebook about AI in classrooms, and there was a teacher that was teaching writing, and so they knew that their students were going to try to use that as the easy shortcut way to get out of writing essays. You think of research papers and things like that, because you can give it those prompts. And so he took this to task and had his students, I think he had 2 writing classes, like class A and class B. And he broke his students kind of down into 4 groups. One was a control group that had no assistive technology at all whatsoever. They just wrote an essay and submitted it. There were groups that used ChatGPT. One of the groups wrote the essay and then had ChatGPT help revise it. And then one of the groups had ChatGPT generate the essay, and then they revised from ChatGPT. And then the 4th group was all ChatGPT. And so what happened is class A would review class B's papers anonymously, and they would rank them based on the strength of the writing and the content and all of those things that the teacher would use to grade the rubric. And class B had class A's papers anonymously doing the same thing. And when this teacher was finished with the research, almost every single time, by a large amount, the papers that were student generated and then ChatGPT helped them polish were the strongest papers. And the ones that were just solely ChatGPT were the weakest. So I thought that was a really good hands-on lesson that gave students some practical experience in reading and evaluating and studying. And then it would show them that, yes, this is a great tool, but it is not the one thing to rely on to do the work for you, because you still have to contribute to the product that you're putting out. So that one fascinated me.
Yeah, I think that's a good lesson. It's interesting from a teacher perspective, but I think it would be good for students to hear that as well. You know, because obviously you're going to get a few select minority there that just want to put a prompt in, and whatever it spits out, they're going to turn in. And, you know, that's kind of a word of warning to say, you know, that it's really not giving you great stuff. It gives you great stuff to start with, and it gives you some ways to polish up your own writing, but just using it wholesale, you know, that's not going to earn you a very, very good grade, even if it does pass the AI detectors or whatever. Even if it does happen to pass the plagiarism test, it just isn't that great. So, you know, I think that's a great one just to share with students.
Especially because I think we've all been there. I don't know about you guys, but procrastination is the name of the game sometimes. And I have the best of intentions. But we've all been there where we have that moment of desperation where there's a looming deadline and we are feeling pressure. So you're tempted to take that shortcut. But is it really worth it in the long run to not do your due diligence? So I think that's a good lesson for students too.
For sure.
I think it also has presented sort of a challenge to educators to think of like, you know, we've been trying to make shifts in education and the way classrooms look like and the way learning looks like. And it's a little bit forcing a hand of like, hey, is a research paper or a paper the best way for my students to show their learning anymore? Because if they can just go in and get something off of ChatGPT, I don't know if they know it. So maybe we can look through it as a lens of like, hey, I need to shift of I'm going to give them the paper and they're going to rework it somehow. So really critical thinking is the new skill that I need to teach the most so that they can evaluate sources no matter where they're getting from to determine best content. So how can I shift traditional assignments to be what learners need now? They don't maybe need what they needed 15 or 20 years ago.
That's a great point. And I love that example that you talked about before when we were kind of planning about the teacher, the history teacher. What was that example?
Yeah. So I saw on Twitter, and sorry, I don't remember the name of the person who tweeted this, but they had said that they asked ChatGPT to write a history piece. So they said, give me, you know, all of the major battles in World War II from this time period, but include 5 factual errors. So ChatGPT generated that response, and then they gave it to their students and were like, hey, can you evaluate this and find the misconceptions or the errors in this reporting, so that the kids could then, they still had to process critically. They had to do research to find out the facts. So really all of the things that he would have accomplished in a traditional writing assignment are kind of reversed or flipped on their head. So students were still doing all of the things they wanted them to do, but they didn't have to do the writing or the bulk of the work in that way.
Shannon, I've done a similar thing actually in my math class. For one, ChatGPT is, you know, it's a language model. It's really not a math engine, kind of like a Wolfram Alpha type of thing. So for the higher depth of knowledge questions, honestly, ChatGPT gets it wrong fairly frequently. However, you can tell it to solve this equation, you do this lower level thing, but make a mistake, and it will solve the equation or do whatever, and it will do it with a mistake. And so I've done that, and I've kind of showed that to the class and said, okay, well, what's the mistake? Let's find the mistake. Or, you know, generated that prompt, let's say 4 times, and broke students up at tables. So there was 4 different groups going, and each time they had to spot a mistake. So that's a great use of ChatGPT in the classroom. Just like you said, those higher level thinking problems. It's not all, you know, with this sorts of technology now. I mean, I'm thinking about freshmen and sophomores. By the time they get through high school, through college, what's that technology going to look like? If all you can do is calculate, how useful are you going to be to an employer who could just use this free software, right? So it's those critical thinking skills, those troubleshooting, identifying, you know, and then correcting, those sorts of things that students really, really need to be good at. And ChatGPT, as you know, provides educators really quick and easy ways to get some prompts and get some discussion going inside the classroom. And like I said, with higher level of thinking problems, honestly, right now, ChatGPT gets it wrong pretty frequently. So I think it's interesting sometimes just to have it solve one of those problems, show it to the kids and just be like, hey, is this right? Is it wrong? If it's wrong, what's the problem? And then we have a discussion that way.
I love that, Bo, because that's one of those process standards that is so hard for, the discourse around math that is so hard for kids to analyze, that gives teachers, the ability to just go in and grab in a real life situation.
Yeah. I've just tested it out this morning. It works for computer science as well. I had to type a Python program to do a certain task, but make a mistake. And it did. And so that would be another way, in computer science, you could do the same way. Cause I know for me, in my curriculum, you might have one or two examples in your textbooks of, oh, here's some student work with a mistake in it, spot the error, but there's usually not enough to really get some good discussion going and also use for like a homework question or two. So this is just a really easy way to get more questions of that style, which are usually pretty tough to come by.
That's a great way to use it. It really is.
I think so. I think so too. And I think, Shannon, you're just dead on talking about the mind shift change. And I really think it's up to us as educators to figure out now, how can we really find out what students know, not what their friends know, not what ChatGPT know. So it's really on us, to find innovative ways to really, find out from students where they're at. I also think it's worth mentioning that there definitely are limitations with ChatGPT. We've mentioned some of them. It can definitely have biases. They're unintentional, but it can have, it was trained on databases. And so we don't know what biases might be written in. It also has a limited understanding of context. Like when we ask students a question, there's context behind it. But when we ask ChatGPT a question, it doesn't know the backstory. It doesn't know the context. Also, it does not have emotional intelligence. It doesn't have feelings. It can't humanize things. It doesn't have empathy. And it really doesn't have any ability to think critically. It cannot come up and critical think like what we're asking students to do. It also is data dependent. So whatever data it was trained on initially and whatever data it has, that's all it has. So we don't have the privilege of knowing what that was. But it's not the answer to everything. It's not the all in all. So I think that it's really important that we look at those biases and then we take assignments and we create them where students do have to humanize things, where there are, emotions and empathy written in that ChatGPT is just not capable of doing.
That's a good point. I think that it still takes, a person to make all of this possible. And keeping that in mind is good.
I think too, when we start looking at it, I loved Caitlin's idea that's popped up here on the screen where she's using it for I can statements and vocab lists for objectives. That's a great way for the teacher to use it and demonstrate that usage. But change is always messy and it's hard. And as teachers, sometimes that is so scary for us because we want to be confident in what we're doing. And I always think that it's so important to model that vulnerability for our students and try something new and get their feedback. And again, I'm speaking for the secondary level because my students were my learning partners a lot of times. And I would say, hey, I got an idea and you're going to be my guinea pigs and you're going to give me feedback. And so I think not only are we going to model, like we need to embrace AI in the classroom, but we need to model that responsible use and how it can fail us and how we can learn from it. And go from there because that it's just going to be here to stay. And as Bo mentioned, and I think a couple, maybe Shannon, you did too, it's just going to keep getting better and better. I think also, again, English teacher here, you think about academic integrity or plagiarism policies. I think teachers are going to have to really start to think about how they can work those into their policies because our students are going to use artificial intelligence. And so we just have to kind of help them learn that ethics and how to use it responsibly. So I think we're going to start looking at how to revise those policies. Also in that Facebook group, and I went and found the specific name, it's the AI Classroom. And there's actually a book that one of the coordinators of the group, there's 3 people that wrote AI in the Classroom, or the AI Classroom, the ultimate educator's ultimate guide. Sorry, I'm botching this. Let me start all over again. Woo! The AI Classroom, ultimate guide to artificial intelligence in education. And there were 3 authors that they run this group, and there's a lot of people posting and interacting, and there's some really good ideas. And one of those that I saw was a librarian who's a school board member, and she was working on the plagiarism policy for the district handbook. And so I think you're going to have to start to see those revisions that you're probably going to revise periodically, because as AI gets smarter, we're going to have to get smarter and kind of tweak those policies too, because again, it all comes down to responsible use and those ethical practices.
I think it's a lot like digital citizenship. You know, we used to tell students not what not to do. You know, that's past, that's history. We have to teach them what to do. And so it's the same thing with AI. It's going to become part of that. What do we teach students? How to use it? I mean, how to be responsible with it. It's a helper. You know, it's not your writer, it's a helper. So I think that'll be on some of our plates in our districts, you know, to start that conversation about how to use AI responsibly. And our kids have to be taught about that. You know, they're not going to organically just have that information.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely true. I'm not a language arts guy, but I do occasionally encounter some essays, especially in my physics. And, you know, students, especially, you know, in the lower high school grades, you know, the sophomores, freshmen, they really don't understand plagiarism that much, right? They think if they're not just copying and pasting, it's not plagiarism. They don't understand about citing sources and the importance of that in the academic realm. So they're certainly not going to just natively understand when and when not to use AI, or the difference between having AI help revise your essay and just having it write your essay. That's going to have to be something that's very explicitly taught to them, and probably a couple times or 3 or 4 times. So you know,
Right.
if it's freshmen, maybe 5 or 6 times. But you know, it's just one of those things. I think every single year, every single time we stop and we write something, we're probably going to have to review, you know, what the do's and don'ts, the rights and the wrongs are. Just because they're still learning the difference, but you know, the ins and outs of plagiarism in and of itself, but also it's just such a new technology that, you know, it's new to us, it's new to them, it's new to everyone. So we're all kind of learning here.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, Bo, if you're listening, and today our goal is really just to kind of dip our toes into ChatGPT and ideas of AI. If you haven't gone there and actually put in something, just go and check it out, because put in something simple that was on your to-do list and see how it can help you. Like I put in there, create a field trip to our new career academy for 6th grade students. And I gave some details about the date, and it wrote like a nice permission slip letter that described it, and I just went in and tweaked it. So it was just like a good entry point, low stakes for me to see what it was capable of doing. So just head there and check it out a little bit and see what you think.
Absolutely. And I think as we've talked about all these different potential avenues for ways we can leverage artificial intelligence in some form, I think probably most of us on this discussion are avid Canva users. And as Joe mentioned earlier, Canva has AI all over the place in it. And these updates have been incredible. And so it's just going to keep getting better and better. And so we're looking at different avenues for ways that we can offer supports and further conversation about creative and innovative ways that we can use artificial intelligence in our classrooms and work on modeling those ethics that we've been talking about. So I think we've got some new some definite potential for future topics here. So if you see something that you want or need, or you're curious about, you can throw a comment in here, or you can reach out to one of us. We all have our Twitter handles here on our discussion, and so we're definitely interested and we want to learn and grow with you. So we're always looking for new learning partners here at Keep Indiana Learning.
Yeah, it would be awesome if people could tweet some ideas out too after, if you're watching this later, and just tag us and keep following along.
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure. It'd be great to see what everyone's using it for. Like I said, I know what I've been using it for, but as a teacher, you kind of live in your own little box to an extent. So yeah, it'd be awesome to hear what other people have been using it or how they've been using it.
I agree. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to add? I think we've kind of run through our topics for the day, but I know we're all interested in this, as are several other of the Keep Indiana Learning, the virtually different learning coaches. So this is not the last you're hearing from us about artificial intelligence. So stay tuned to see what else we might bring your way. And again, tag us. I see the Keep Indiana Learning Twitter handle and the hashtag virtually different. Throw that out on Twitter and let us know how you're using AI, whether it's ChatGPT in the Canva AIs. We've got Bard for Google, and I'm sure there's lots of different tools that I don't even know about yet because they're growing so fast. So stay tuned and see what we can bring you about artificial intelligence for your classrooms.